guest speaker today. I've known this young man about 15 years or so, I guess. Colonel Mark Baaden, U.S. Army Reserve, has served for nearly 34 years and honorably retires next week. He is a life member of our Manny Bacon American Legion Post 1758 and has lived in Hopewell Junction for nearly 30 years. Colonel Baaden has been a distinguished career in 2 uniforms. In 2021, he retired after 25 years serving as a zone sergeant with the New York State Troopers. His Army career has seen him deployed 5 times, spending over 7 years away from East Fishkill in service to our nation. Colonel Baaden has done 2 tours to Iraq, 1 emergency deployment to New Orleans for rescue operations resulting from Hurricane Katrina, 1 tour to Afghanistan, and 1 tour to Somalia. During his tours, he was no stranger to leading from the front and being in the line of fire. He has received 4 Bronze Star medals, a Distinguished Meritorious Service Medal, 3 Meritorious Medals, and an Army Commendation for Valor for single-handedly repulsing an ambush against numerous attackers who threw a gauntlet of fire onto his team in Iraq. He also has the distinction of being a Purple Heart recipient for wounds received when a suicide bomber attacked his base. Colonel Baaden is a graduate of the Army War College and is not only portrayed in the Military Times Hall of Valor, but his story is on display locally at the National Purple Heart Hall of Fame Museum and Education Center located in New Windsor. He's married to his beautiful wife and very patient Selena for nearly 30 years, and they have a daughter, Samantha, and a son, Michael, that were raised here in Hopewell Junction. Colonel Baaden and his wife, after having retirement next week, are bound for Florida, where they will reside and meet their first grandchild, who is arriving to our world in 2 weeks. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to present as our guest speaker a proud son of East Fishkill, a loyal friend, a brave soldier, and a loyal comrade of Manny Bacon American Legion Post, Colonel Mark Baaden. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I have to put my glasses on. I'm reminded George Washington in 1782 at the Newburgh Address, right near here, addressing his officers before dismissing them after the Revolutionary War ended, had to wear spectacles. And he pulled them out, and he didn't want to look weak in front of his men, but it actually really made him more humble. And he ended up saying, he goes, not only has the war made my hair gray, but it has nearly blinded me. So thank you, Jim, for that introduction. Before I begin, I want to say something about Jim Reynolds and the East Fishkill American Legion Post 1758. The post is named Manny Bacon Post in honor of a fallen son of East Fishkill who died on a distant battlefield in Tunisia in World War II, and I'm going to speak about him more later. Jim Reynolds is a longtime commander of your American Legion Post, and among one of the best men and veterans that I have had the privilege to know. When I got home from my first tour in Iraq, I was angry, confused, and having been wounded, Jim in this post went above and beyond to welcome me home and literally and figuratively embraced me and let me know that I was among fellow veterans and friends and would never be alone. I'm eternally grateful for that, and it has helped me immensely. It is men like Jim and your American Legion Post that keep our traditions to honor our deceased and living veterans in our community active in our hearts. And they also teach our young people why they should be proud to be Americans and about the sacrifices our fallen military and first responders have made for all of us. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask you to join me in applauding Jim and the American Legion Post 1758 for what they do to enhance our community year after year. So good morning, East Fishkill. I am honored to share this solemn day with you and heartily thank you for your attendance that we may share honoring those that gave up all of their future days so that we and our future generations may have ours. I want to thank Town Supervisor D'Alessandro and the Town Board and the support staff for their continued support to our veterans and their families. Our town always looks stunning this time of year as you drive through it and observe our telephone poles with images of our East Fishkill veterans. It is a source of great pride for this community and has been duplicated, as you've heard, in other surrounding towns. But I remember when East Fishkill was the first town in Dutchess County to honor our veterans in such a way. Anyone driving into East Fishkill for the first time immediately knows what our American values are and the tribute and respect we give our veterans. I also want to thank our outstanding first responders. These are also exceptional people like our veterans. They protect us here at home so that we may live in safety and freedom. 2 weeks ago was National Police Week. I have had the opportunity to attend the memorial service conducted every May in Washington, D.C. There is a memorial there with over 23,000 fallen members of law enforcement engraved upon it. Each year in May, they add the names to the memorial of the officers we lost in the prior year. It is with profound sadness from our veteran community that East Fishkill will unfortunately be represented next year when one of our finest East Fishkill police officers, Police Officer Daniel P. Diodato, will be forever represented and inscribed on that memorial. I want to extend my deepest condolences to the Diodato family, Chief Cuccia, and the entire grieving law enforcement community over losing a hero. Like our military fallen, Officer Diodato gave his life so that we may be free and safe. We honor him in his memory here today at this memorial alongside Manny Bacon and the other military heroes that we have lost since the founding of our proud nation nearly 250 years ago. With regard with what I'd like you to take away and share with your families and loved ones as this year's Memorial Day reflection, I cite a quote. It was stated in 1961 by a candidate running for governor of California that you may have heard of and went on to do great things for our nation. His name was Ronald Reagan. It goes like this. Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on to them to do the same. Or one day we will spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it was once like to live in the United States when men were still free. Those powerful words epitomize the sacrifices that our falling has gifted us. Since the founding of our armed forces in 1775, the United States has endured nearly 1.4 million killed in action and over 40,000 missing in action. That's actually staggering for a nation just under 250 years old. Those men and women left towns like ours, either never returning or to return to reside in our cemeteries. We owe them our very existence. And as we can even stand here today, we could just honor their supreme sacrifice still as a free people. These men and women were from among us, and we're not merely a faceless statistic. One of those faces we can see this time of year at the intersection of State Route 376 and 82. His name was Charles Peter Bacon, nicknamed Manny. And in April of 1943, Manny's parents received a telegram that their 22-year-old son was missing in action in heavy combat in North Africa. I'm sure that this whole community back then was united in prayer, hopeful that Manny was still alive and being held as a captive, as a prisoner of war. But unfortunately, that wasn't to be. Manny's body was located several weeks later, and he was buried in a hastily constructed military cemetery in Tunisia, so far from home. Manny's remains were eventually returned to the United States, and he rests eternally next to his military brothers and sisters in Long Island National Cemetery. I do encourage you to learn more about Manny on June 29th here at our community center, where the American Legion Post 1758 will be hosting an open house discussing our distinguished hometown hero. I mentioned earlier about how much we love and appreciate the sacrifices that our first responders make for us every day. Prior to Manny's Army service, he courageously served our community as a lieutenant in our very own East Fishkill Fire Department. We are truly blessed to have men in this community that selflessly serve us like Officer Dodato and Manny Bacon have. This is the character of people we come from and that exist around us daily. We miss our heroes, and their absence hurts, but we are also proud of them and how they bravely represent us in their final moments. It is incumbent on us for our remaining days to tell their stories and to live in the example of bravery as they did. We will never forget them. As I quoted from Ronald Reagan, our freedom is not passed on to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same. So we build and gather around memorials to honor the sacrifice and embrace the great families that they came from, to let them know that they are not alone, that their brave loved one's sacrifice was not in vain, that we will carry the message and example of how proud we are that they lived and died for us. This is our American heritage and makes us a more civilized nation to honor the men and women that didn't know us but died to protect us. It makes us feel as if we knew them a little, because they were once us. They had hopes, they had dreams, they had families, they had friends. They loved, they laughed, they mourned. They are not just faceless inscriptions on our monuments. Now they are the angels that look over us, as they did when they were protecting us as alive. They are the inscription for our young people that continue to step up to serve in the military and as first responders, as well as for the old veterans that transition from wearing a military uniform to becoming a respectable member of their own communities and to serve them in numerous ways. Ladies and gentlemen, I have served in uniform for 34 years. And in 6 days, the Army retires me, and I will pack my uniform away. And that uniform has been my identity my entire adult life. And when I do that, I'm going to struggle because I will reflect on my friends and comrades that fell on battlefields or died in training to do the job the nation asked of us. I wish there was a way I could just even get 5 minutes back with them, to laugh with them, to smile, to share a meal or a beer, to tell them to their face that I love them, for their friendship, and thank them for being an example of excellence that I always wanted to be. But I will see them again someday. And frankly, they are not actually gone. They are always with us and can live through us by our own conduct. If we continue to serve our community and never hesitate to tell those closest to us how much we love and appreciate them, if we enjoy the rights and freedoms we have as Americans and stand up for them when they are challenged, then we could look at monuments and say thank you and feel proud that we live in a nation that produced the greatness for what is behind those granite and metal structures. So I want to leave you with this, East Fishkill. I want to leave you with a message of hope. This is typically a day of sadness, but we are proud Americans. We are grateful Americans. Every day the sun rises, it rises on a land that's still free. We have proven over and over again that we will fight and sacrifice if necessary to preserve the freedom that our ancestors passed down to us, and we will never forget our fallen and what they have done for us. Thank you, East Fishkill. May God bless our fallen. May God bless our first responders. May God bless our armed forces. May God bless our veterans. And may God bless the United States of America.